You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today we're going to do a fun dive into personal productivity hacks as a whole. I know we do a lot of these topics we're getting from the brands of the network. Okay, Amazon, content optimization, paid media, might be SEO, might be search. But then I was connecting with Will here from Seller Labs, and I'm going to kick it over to him in a second. He can do the full intro and kind of the background on himself. And he was mentioning, these like hacks that people should be thinking about to make themselves more productive. And so I thought that was just an interesting take as a whole. So we're just going to riff on that for a while. But Will, I'm going to kick it over to you. We'd love to hear you, maybe a little background.
Cool. Yeah.
You, Seller Labs, that'd be fun. And then we'll jump into it. Sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. So my story starts actually moving across the country. I was working for a digital advertising agency, and I'd worked there for a couple of years, and I was kind of like, I'm thinking there may be something new for me. Got a phone call from a guy named Dustin Checketts, who happens to be the brother of Brandon Checketts. Brandon Checketts is the founder of Seller Labs. And Dustin invited me to move all the way across the country out to Georgia. And he was like, you know what, Brandon's the type of person he'll probably let you start a company if you make it out this way. And I was like, maybe. Okay, yeah, fine. We're moving out there. Prayed about it. Went out there with my wife, fell in love with Georgia, and lived there for 4 years. Well, fast forward a little bit. I gained Brandon's trust to the point where while he was building Seller Labs, I pitched him on the idea of creating data automation. Because I am like, if you've met me for more than 10 minutes, you begin to recognize that I'm a tool junkie. Like I actually have a YouTube channel called Automation Hunter, and I own the domain name automationhunter.com. And on that channel, I have several tools that I've gone out and messed around with and play. I tend to be the kind of person I got to press all the buttons. So, like I can do things with Zoom. I can do things with my camera that people are like, how the flip did you figure that out? And I was like, I don't know. I just like to press all the buttons. And so data automation was kind of my opportunity to channel some of that energy into a company. And Brandon and I built a boutique automation company that initially was just going to automate crap for anybody. We were going to, anybody out there who needed automation, we were going to get involved. This is back in 2017, by the way. So before automation was a keyword or a buzzword or whatever. And we were the first company out there that was a Zapier certified app developer and a Zapier certified expert. I was like the only person out there in the world who had both of those things going for me. Fast forward a little more, we put a new CEO in charge over there. And Brandon said, hey, I need some help over here at Seller Labs. We've rolled out a new product called Data Hub, where we go in and get all the data inside Amazon and then make it available via like a SQL connector. And I was like, I'm in. Let's go. I like data. I like automating stuff. I like making stuff easier for sellers and agencies and all of the above. So fast forward to now, and that's what I've been doing is helping them kind of dig in and do all of the above.
Awesome. Did you 10 years ago, what did you see yourself doing? And then I want to get into the other stuff, but I always love people's stories as well.
Man, 10 years ago was 2014. 2014. I graduated from college in 2010. And right after college, I told everybody I was never going to work for anybody. Never working for anybody. I'm just going to go start my own thing. And I ran out and tried to do that multiple times, failed miserably. I convinced the guy who owned a significant print brand here in the area. And these are the days when you could buy Google AdWords, like you would go and pay Google AdWords and your phone would start ringing off the hook because people hadn't figured out that Google AdWords were like a way that you could just make your phone ring off the hook. And so he built an entire business off of that. And I came to him and said, look, I'm going to build the digital side. You focus on the print. I'm going to build websites. I'm going to build, all sorts of other stuff like that. And I pitched him on it and I failed miserably. Like I did not understand what it took to build processes or systems or anything like that. Went to work for an ad agency, like I mentioned before, 4 years at the ad agency, then got invited to go back out to Georgia. And so like, I always wanted originally to get out there and do that. So 2014, I was still at the ad agency. I'd worked my way up from being the lowest man on the totem pole in terms of the media buying department. Like it was my job to do 17 hours of copying and pasting every single week. So like literally 2 days of my entire life, I was stuck doing copying and pasting, and it was bad. It was real bad. So much so like, and you'll find that I'm actually allergic to like that manual do it over and over again thing. Someone showed me a VLOOKUP in Excel, and I was like, wait a minute. If Excel can make that data from over there and this data from over here, and I can match it up like that, what else could you do with an Excel formula? And at that point, like I was hooked. I was like, I am going to figure this. So I taught myself how to program in like Visual Studio, or not Visual Studio. It was a Visual Basic, like the code that goes in the back end of Excel.
Yeah.
And I created the mother doc. And I called it the mother. Actually, a friend of mine called it the mother doc because he was like, what doesn't this thing do? It would wake up in the morning at 4 a.m. and this thing would open up a web browser, log into Facebook, download the ads, like all the different ad reports, put them into the proper folder, then import them into itself, and then run pivot tables across Google AdWords, Facebook ads, and the ad network that we were running, so that I could get all of those, all the cost per click, all the CPMs, all the, trending CTRs, everything in the same spot. And then it would turn it into a PDF. And I even had it to the point where I could press a button and it would make a PDF and email it to the guy. So like the entire flow, Excel sheet, could control everything from the data gathering down to actually making it go, down to like actually spitting out the PDFs. And it would take like 3.5 hours to run. So remember my 17-hour manual clicking, I got it down to the point where this thing would wake up before I got into the office. And that was tricky, like figuring out how to get it to wake up in the middle of the night and like all that jazz. That was tricky. I had to do like, that was like, I had to figure out how to make a Windows machine like wake up in the middle of the night. But I spent like probably 300 and some odd hours teaching myself how to do all of this stuff, but I automated the whole thing. And that's like where my journey in automation began, and where I was like, wait a minute, what if I built a company? So 2014, the mother doc was in full force. I was using the mother doc every single day to like spin up these reports and connect all of these different dots. And it wasn't every day, but I was working on different parts of it all the time.
No, it's so fun to hear from the standpoint of, I mean, where we're at right now, that has to happen pretty much on a weekly basis. And by that, I mean, people need to pause, take a look at what the current state is and how things are improved, and then go try to tackle on how to catch up with the times. And that's everything, paid media, content generation, whatever it might be. You can't just sit back and say, I'm going to do a photo shoot because I've always done a photo shoot. I'm going to copy and paste for 17 hours. I mean, you can, but you're going to get left behind.
I went in, and so the reason I created all of that is because we were having campaigns that would overspend and stuff. And I was like, crap, I got to start looking at this more carefully. And so I created a daily health check. I called it the DHC. And I would go through manually and I would check each of the campaigns and watch the click-through rate go up or down for each of the campaigns and see exactly what was moving and changing. And after I'd done that manually enough times, I was like, oh, I bet you we could VLOOKUP this. Or, I mean, I didn't know anything more than that a VLOOKUP could do that, but Google could sure teach me. And so I just started figuring out how to connect all of those different dots.
It is funny too on the VLOOKUP side, because the first time you find VLOOKUP for anybody, I was a, it was a scientist, right? And when you can compare data and you can do a VLOOKUP, when you find that future, when you find that function, the future completely changes in how you see it, because
That's
it
exactly what
removes
it was.
the monotony of, oh my gosh, I have to do this and go hunt and peck and try to find it and then copy it.
Yeah, I about lost my crap, because the moment I could get that VLOOKUP to go, then I could run a pivot table on the data and actually start to mix and match and see it. I mean, to put it in Amazon seller terms, like if you've got one report that's got keywords and the other report that's got ASINs, and you want to like get the impressions over there next to the keywords, and you want to like pull all of that data in, you can start to match up and get whatever it is, like the brands, over into that spot and just have all of them matched, instead of having to manually go down the thousands of rows and like typing in the brand. You can make a short list of all the brands and then just VLOOKUP that whole column and have it automatically assign the correct ASIN to the correct brand, and across multiple days worth of data. And that automation, like just that pure ability to take a set of data and a set of data and mix and match it together, that's what got me going. That's what got me excited about it.
I do want to get into the personal productivity side, because I think it's going to be awesome. But then are you amazed? So you're doing that in 2014. You fast forward a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Like few people were doing that back then. Now you have different tools that can help you out with it. Like,
oh yeah.
How shocked are you at where we're at today, and then how fast it's changing and cool things that are popping up in that space?
I mean, I've been on the forefront of that change. Like every time something new comes out, I'm always, people are like, oh, Will, there's this new tool. And most of the time, like if they give me a rough description of what it does, I'm like, oh, it's called this, and I've been using it for a year, right? Like that's usually how it goes when we talk about a new tool, because I'm such a junkie when it comes to that kind of stuff. I don't often get introduced. There's a few people who are a little farther ahead of the curve than me, and I pay attention to them because they'll feed me tools, and they must be, I mean, insane levels of insane to get there ahead of where I'm at. And so where like would I expect us to be here? I remember telling people like the development problems that were out there 5 years ago. 5 years ago, it was really disgustingly cool that you could take a picture of a bird, and Amazon's API could identify what the bird species was based on the image. That was machine learning. That was like, holy crap, because that was the $1 billion problem. Like you go back to 2014, the thing we were talking about that nobody, like if a really rich guy came and wanted to ask a bunch of developers to make something, that was the problem that they would throw out and call it the $1 billion problem. Like, I want an app that can take a picture and then mash it together with another picture so that they're side by side, and allow me to type in my name at the bottom. And I want it to be able to put it in this big catalog and kind of connect all those different dots. And the developer's like, yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem. And in the developer's mind, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, they're talking about the app. And then the rich guy says, oh, and I want it to be able to identify the species of bird in the picture. And the developer goes, it just went from like 40,000 to $1 billion. Like nobody's done that. Nobody knows how to make that happen. And so that's kind of the problem that was the $1 billion problem back then. Well, fast forward 5 years, Amazon had that covered. Or like facial recognition was the other one that was like, only the government's got that. And it's not, it's a $1 billion problem. We're not going to solve that. Well, Amazon's got that as well. And I say Amazon, but there are lots of Google, lots of these other companies had kind of begun to figure out a lot of these problems. Well, fast forward to 5 years ago, and the $1 billion problem wasn't facial recognition or bird recognition or any of that kind of stuff. The $1 billion problem was, how do I feed, like think about Alexa 5 years ago. people were kind of freaking out at the fact that this thing had a natural language processing model. Do you guys remember? Do you remember that term, natural language processing, NLP? Like that was like hot topic. Amazon has got some cool stuff going on with this natural language processing because you could feed in a sentence and it would detect the sentiment and the idea and what was going on. And it would attempt to choose a direction of what was going on. But it wasn't good enough that it could actually understand context and really understand and push on a lot of those different pieces. That was the nut. That was the $1 billion problem, was how do I have a conversation with Alexa and she's smart enough to actually understand the context of what we're talking about and not lose stuff. Like think about Google Now. Like Google Now, still today, Google Now is still catching up. Like if you say it, my phone's going to go off. If you say, hey, Google right now, most of those, or hey, Siri, those apps all are on kind of their own little like process. Google's put theirs so it goes straight to Gemini, which is their LLM, their large language model, right? Well, the fascinating thing there is they have yet to make it do all the things that the old Google Now could do. And so they've kind of thrown out some of their productivity because they haven't hooked up the new Corvette engine to all the things the Pontiac could do, right? And so we're still kind of lagging behind some of what's there. But now if I say, hey, Google, and I have a conversation with the thing, it doesn't need to detect my sentiment. It's actually got some real understanding of the conversation. Have you had a conversation with AI yet, Aaron? Like press the button and like had a conversation?
Yeah, in the not the verbal one, but I have the paid version of ChatGPT, OpenAI, whatever we want to call it. And just it's interesting because even in the type form, I tell you, like I was trying to make revisions on a logo, right, for a YouTube channel. So we're going to take, we're doing, I don't know, 4 to 5 webinars a week, right? And everybody pings us afterwards and says, hey, can we get a copy? So we're finally launching a YouTube channel. What is it? Next Up in Digital. That's the YouTube channel. We're going to start publishing these two. Okay. And so I'm in there and I'm just going back and forth. Oh, refine this, make a logo, make thumbnails. So we're going back and forth. And I got to the point, it was really weird, but it made me pause, is I felt bad asking it a 10th time, but I shouldn't. I'm like, wait a minute. It would literally do this all day long, but it's so nice in the conversation. I'm like, oh, can you make another one, please? Is it a problem if you make another one? Could you do it? I'm like, whoa, this is weird. Like, I literally felt a little bit of guilt asking it like the 10th time to do something for me.
Yeah.
And that's where I had this pause moment, was like, it had really sucked me into a conversation. That it was almost like there was a person on the other side. I was like in a trying to solve a problem, in an online order, right? Chatting back and forth with customer service, which now I know is a lot of AI chatbots. But when you think you're really talking to a person and it was that clean, that's where my mind was like, we're there. All they have to do is put a voice to it. And
so
it's over, right? Like,
oh yeah, hold on one second. Watch this. All right. So what I just did was I set up my microphone so that I can have a 2-directional. And I was just going to ask. So let's ask, ChatGPT to, if it were live on a podcast, how would it introduce itself? Let's ask that question.
You want me to ask you right now?
Hold on. It's thinking. And watch my internet. It'll be too slow for us to even have it show up.
I see it thinking right now.
It's thinking. I
should roll it up on my phone.
So this thing is Oh, that's really interesting. That's the longest I think I've ever seen it think. Apparently, it's very scared to introduce itself on a podcast.
Are you on ChatGPT?
Yeah, so I'm on the paid version of ChatGPT, and we're going to ask ChatGPT to introduce itself on this podcast so you can hear the voice version of it. Come on, ChatGPT. Seriously?
We'll have to come back.
Well, that's the funny part is that's a good example actually of why like the technology is almost there. All right, you can actually introduce yourself this time. And it's doing all the things that it does besides actually introducing itself.
All right.
Well, we'll have to invite ChatGPT to join us on another podcast episode.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is,
I wonder if I ask it on my end, right?
Try it. Yeah.
So I just brought it up, right?
So then hit the little on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
There's that little, you see right here?
Yeah.
There's a little microphone or headphones.
Yeah.
So don't press the microphone, press the headphones.
Okay.
And then just say, hey, ChatGPT, introduce yourself on my podcast.
Sure, I'd introduce myself like this. Hello, everyone. I'm ChatGPT, an AI language model designed to assist with a wide range of topics. I can help answer questions, provide information, or just chat about whatever you're interested in. Looking forward to our conversation.
What would you tell me, ChatGPT, about Amazon? Like, what would you say to Amazon sellers? If you could speak to every Amazon seller on the planet, what would you tell them?
If I could speak to every Amazon seller, I'd say, hi there. It's crucial to focus on product quality, customer service, and standing out among competitors. Utilize Amazon's advertising tools wisely to boost visibility and keep optimizing your listings based on customer feedback. Also, staying updated with Amazon's policies and trends can help navigate the marketplace effectively. Best of luck with your sales.
So
it's there. So that's the new version. Like I hadn't popped it out and tested that yet.
Yeah. So we're there now, and you can see like my phone decided to crap out on me. It didn't actually jump into that, but they just released a new version of it, GBT 4.0, a couple of months ago, and they demoed that thing. And that same voice, you can say, "Sing me happy birthday," and in proper tonality, it will sing you happy birthday. Or you can say, sound angry, and it'll sound angry. Or you like sound sad, and it'll sound sad. Like they've upgraded it even a step farther than what you were just seeing. And they'll have a button where you can press and say, what do you see right now? And it'll say, oh, I see a Caucasian male, and he appears to be talking into a microphone, and he's got, looks like an iMac in the background. Like it can actually see live what's going on around you. And they demoed this like a month and a half ago was when the newest thing came out. What you just saw on that, what we did, we invited ChatGPT onto the podcast. My favorite thing to do to it is to find a famous author like Alex Hormozy or one of these other guys, Jim Collins, Good to Great, and say, pretend you're him. What advice would you give me about this problem I'm having in my business? And I'm not even joking. Like it actually gives pretty decent advice. Like the idea of having to call up a friend and just chat through a problem. You now can do that without bothering someone. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have human connection. Don't get me wrong. Like I still think that's very valuable. But like middle of the night, wherever you are, driving down the road, I'll have conversations with this thing to just flesh out an idea farther. Give me some ideas about this, or pretend you're Jean-Luc Picard from the Enterprise, and how would you handle this situation? That giving it a persona that's where the thing gets super interesting, because it has access to, like, it knows who Jean-Luc Picard is. And it, and if it was like, if Jean-Luc Picard were to be an Amazon seller, what would he sell? Like, it'll answer that question with something fairly interesting to kind of connect those dots.
It's literally Data, right? From Star Trek, right?
Oh yeah. That's that's why I brought up Star Trek, actually, because I was trying to help people understand, like, imagine that you could go on a car ride and at any moment, Data from Star Trek, who this android has access to the entire database of everything in his brain. Like, that's what's downloaded into his brain. So he has weird facts and all of this knowledge just stored there, and he can go access it and like verbally give it back to you. That's where we're at.
So cool and so scary at the same time. So
agreed there. Oh, it'll search the internet too, by the way. So if you want like real-time data, like give me data ideas for 2024 in Syracuse, Utah. Like, my wife and I actually went on a full-blown, we had a date that got done with dinner, and we got into the car, and my wife was like, what do you want to go to now? And I was like, hold on a second. And I pulled up my phone and I said, all right, ChatGPT, date ideas, Syracuse, Utah. And then I told it a little bit, my wife and I are more on the nerdy side, less on the jock side. We're interested in X, Y, or Z. And it came up with stuff. And it was like, you could go around the Jensen's Nature Park, which is like 5 minutes down the road. And I was like, what could we do there? And it gave me a list of different ideas of things we could do. And it was like a picture scavenger hunt. I was like, perfect. We're going to do a picture scavenger hunt. Well, this was before it could see. It can now see. So like, you can press a button and take a picture of something, and it'll be like, oh, I see you got the picture of the bird. Let me check that off the list. And now you should go find the picture of the wildflower.
Yeah. That's one step, right? Because I use it to going out east with the family, right? So there's 6 of us. Hey, family of 6 trip. We want to, start. We want to make sure we hit Niagara Falls, go to Acadia National Park, hit Boston, New York, and then it will map out the timing, how long it takes to drive there, the things to do at each stop along the way. And then it adds like cool stuff. You didn't even think, oh, you should probably stop to see the whales while you're in Boston. Oh, okay.
I didn't even know there were whales in Boston. Yeah. Yeah.
So is this the top like tech tool that I'm thinking, like, when we started this off, and this, we can go a completely different direction. Like, it doesn't matter, but like, we were talking like the productivity tools.
That's the top one. So the 3 categories of productivity tools that I see a lot of people not using are using something with their clipboard. So clipboard on the phone, clipboard on the computer, virtual meetings. I think there's a giant gap there, and chat, like instant message. And they all kind of tie back to ChatGPT and some of the different things that are available in there. Clipboards. Aaron, are you using a clipboard manager? You know what a clipboard manager is?
I'm not.
So here's the productivity hack on the clipboard manager side of things. When let's say that you're on a page and you have identified 5 different ASINs in your catalog that are underperforming, and you want to send those 5 ASINs, but you've just got the product detail pages open, right? So like, you're on the listing page for each one. And you want to send those over to your agency to be like, hey, we got to focus on these. Well, the normal rule of thumb is you go through and you click there, and then you go back to your email and you paste the first ASIN, and then you go back to the next tab and you open that tab and you find the ASIN, and you go back to your email and you paste that tab, right?
That's exactly what you do.
That's the normal way you do. Not anymore. After listening to the podcast, what I want you to do is I want you to Google best clipboard manager for insert your operating system. So are you a Mac guy or are you a PC guy, Aaron?
PC. Oh, I'm both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah.
So for the people on PC, I have a solid recommendation, and that's because I'm on PC and I've used a lot of them. There's one called Clip, CLIP. So I recommend going and downloading Clip right now. And what you're going to do is you're going to go get clip to handle some of this stuff. Now, is this going to go just to audio, or is this going to the visual, to the YouTube channel as well?
Yeah. It'll be visual as well.
It'll be both. Okay. So for those of you, if you don't mind allowing me to share my screen, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you what clip can do. While you're allowing me to share screen, I'm going to describe it for those who are on audio. So basically what happens here is, instead of that normal back and forth kind of everything you have to figure out how to do, you don't have to do that anymore. The flow, if a clipboard manager is in play, is I go to the first, I'm browsing through my listings and I'm deciding which one. The moment I decide, oh yeah, that's one I'm going to send to the agency, I just put it in my clipboard. And then I move on, keep going. Oh, I found another one. I want to send it to my agency. Put it in my clipboard. And you can even copy like the title and then the ASIN, and then the title and then the ASIN, and then the title and then the ASIN. And what it's going to do is it's going to store each one of those, and you can store up to 100 different things. Then you go back to that email and you go into your clipboard manager and you go click, 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 click. And it spits out all of those things because they were in your clipboard manager. So instead of you having to flip back and forth between the email and the listings to go keep all of that, your clipboard becomes a space where you can store up to 100 things. Have you ever had the situation, the other one that gets me, you ever had the situation where you've copied a password and you put it into somewhere and then you get logged out on accident and you come back and you're like, oh crap, I got to go find that password again because it's no longer in your clipboard because you copied something else over the top of it. Well, this makes it so that for the last 100 things, it's there. You can go back and just nab it. Okay. So share my screen and I'll show you what this looks like for those of you who are visual on there. For me, I've got it set up so that I can do Control-Shift-V. Okay. So you can see it's got a couple of different things in my clipboard here. It'll even take in, so like, here's a screenshot. Okay. These are parts of an email that I got up there. I can do saved clips. So if I want like a specific saved clip that I want to come back to over and over again and put all of that. I can even translate something to a specific language if I want from the clipboard manager, and I can search. So if I want to be like, oh, I put Aaron's email in here. Where was that? And so obviously it didn't show up Aaron's email in there because I didn't have it stored. But you know, if I want to be like, okay, what emails do I have saved in there? Oh, there's an email, right? So I can grab any information I want, up to 100 things in the past, in my clipboard. So clipboard manager for me saves me probably 2 or 3 minutes a day here and there, going back and forth. And sometimes it really saves my bacon because the thing that I copied, like I was on a Zoom meeting and somebody sent me a link. Ever been on a Zoom meeting and somebody sent you a link in the Zoom chat?
And then and then
you close out Zoom chat and you're like, Well, now when that chat comes up, the first thing I do is slap it in my clipboard, but I don't have to go open a notepad and put it somewhere because when I've saved it, like when I've hit that Control-C, imagine Control-C puts it into this magical text pad editor that I could go back and edit and search.
So you're still just hitting Control-C every time?
Yep.
And it just automatically dumps it in there?
And it just dumps it in there. So the last 100 things that you've done Control-C on, you can go back and get, is basically what a clipboard manager does.
That is awesome.
So, and most people, they don't even know that it exists. It's just not even something that they've considered. They're just so trained to do it. And it's funny because I'll get on phone calls with people and they'll be like, oh, I know you told me about that clipboard manager. Like, just download it. Like, it takes 30 seconds to download and install. There's another one on Mac. But if you Google like best clipboard manager for Mac, like it's going to come up with several different options. And Copy Clip, I think, is the name of the one that I was using on my Mac. But yeah, so like really, really powerful clipboard. Second hack for the clipboard. What are you using, iPhone or or an Android? Okay. So I use, and I believe it works. Actually, let me Google it real fast. iPhone phone link. Sweet. Okay. So if you have an iPhone with iOS 14 or higher and a Windows 11 device, you can sync the clipboard between your two devices. So whenever I press copy on my phone on a link, I can go to my computer and hit paste. Boom. The link's there. Have you ever had the situation where you have to type in, like I have the little authenticator app on my phone?
Yes.
And I got to type in. So like I open it up and I'm like manually typing in 2468, whatever. And I've got the little timer. I feel like I'm in a freaking rat race game when that goes off. It's like, oh shoot, that number is going to change and I'm going to be halfway through it. Not anymore. You press the copy button on my phone and it's in my clipboard on my computer. So I just Control V, boom, done. Okay. Phone link is the name of it. So if you're on a PC right now, phone link. And then once it comes up, it'll come up with a QR code. You just scan that QR code with your phone and immediately, and you can, some phones, it'll let you take phone calls. You can send and receive text messages with it. And then you can actually share your screen and see your apps even on your computer too, if you want. Like you could open up an app from your phone onto your computer. So like phone link, and it's totally free. It's just part of Windows. I'm on Windows 10, totally works fine. But apparently Windows 11, it'll work with an iPhone too. So yeah, that's the other hack in terms of clipboards, where I constantly want my phone's clipboard to be synced up with the other and vice versa. And so phone link is the way that I would do that.
That's too cool.
So those are the two. I'm sure Aaron, when we started the podcast, he was like, clipboards, really, Will?
Yeah. I'm open for anything. Like it is funny because, even it is like what you said, like could be 2 to 3 minutes a day. And then randomly it's 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh yeah. Because you lost something that you like.
It's that Zoom and then you're trying to ping somebody. Oh, yep. Can you send it to me? They're out of the office. They get it to you. Just like, time's gone. Most valuable asset we have is now gone and we've wasted it. Or we just have clipboard.
Yep. So those are my 2 clipboard hacks. Highly recommended. Moving on to, and we'll give the condensed version of it. I've got a lot more that I could go into. In a virtual meeting, like a Zoom meeting like this one, or Google Meet, I recommend a platform called Fathom. Okay. Fathom.video. So if you go type into your browser, fathom.video instead of .com, fathom.video. They have a platform where you can have a virtual assistant, like literally virtual, like digital. It's you just kicked mine out a little while ago. It's a digital note taker. The cool thing about that guy is he will digitally record the entire conversation. So for me on my podcast, I have him in there on purpose because I want to be able to go back and reference what we talked about. Oh, I was on that podcast. Will mentioned a clipboard manager, but I don't remember which clipboard manager he mentioned. So if I go into my Fathom and I type in clipboard manager, it brings up every single conversation I've ever had about clipboard managers and who I talked to about it. So I can go search. So like as an Amazon seller, if I'm meeting with vendors all the time and I want to remember which vendor was talking about XYZ product, oh yeah, just type in XYZ product and it'll pop up and show you that vendor. And if the vendor's like, no, I didn't tell you that price. I told you this price. So I'm like, oh, well, let's go see what the note taker said. So you go search, and sure enough, the note taker, and it's recorded, and you can pull out a highlight and send it to him and be like, I think you told me the other price. See this little recording we took? Like it's just sitting right there, and it's totally. Then let's imagine that you're an Amazon seller. You're trying to do an affiliate deal. You get on the phone with the influencer. You have this great conversation about the affiliate deal, all the terms, everything like that. Now you got to go work up a little contract between the two of you. Google a template, edit the template for a couple of hours or for an hour. Okay, now I'm ready to meet. No. Take the entire conversation and just hit the copy transcript button. So you've got the entire conversation you just had. It's in Fathom. Go over to ChatGPT 4 and say, make me a contract for an affiliate agreement based upon this conversation. Enter. It will write the entire contract. You read through it and say, those terms seem a little too favorable for him. Make them so I get a little more. It'll give you another version of the contract and you're done. Like letters of intent, follow-up emails, any of that stuff. Like make me a presentation. Like, Aaron, I could take this conversation we had just now and say, write me a presentation, like plan out the slides and what visuals I should have on my slides for a speaking opportunity at Prosper Show based on this conversation. And it will plan out all of those slides for you. And then you just give it feedback until you get it the way you want it. So when I have conversations with people now, they are cannon fodder for content that I want to make. They're cannon fodder for all of that kind of stuff because the spoken word is no longer just spoken. It's immediately written with my note taker. And Fathom Note Taker is free. Okay. Second hack with Fathom Note Taker for $12 a month. I think this is a steal. For $12 a month, I can make it so the thing will extract action items out of my phone calls. And I can hook that up to Zapier and push it to ClickUp or Trello or wherever I want. It's not 100% accurate. So you do need somebody to like, was that a real action that we should be taking action on? Or was that just Aaron and Will, shooting the breeze or figuring out where that is? So that's the other thing that I just am mind blown. And when it comes out and pulls out the action, it says, Aaron said he would follow up with X, Y, or Z and said he would introduce so-and-so. Like, instead of having to remember that, my assistant goes in and she audits my digital assistant and says, that's a real action. That's not a real action. She jumps to that part of the phone call, watches what happened and says, oh, that's a real action. And then goes and takes care of it.
That
so
takes care of my...
if you ever said, man, I just wish I had a digital assistant that would follow me around on all of my phone calls and write down my to-dos. $12 a month.
I mean, I spend my days just advising brands, right? And out of each one of those, I usually have 3 to 8 connections, right? If we're like, oh, I'd love to talk to this brand, or hey, I'm looking for help with, selecting an Amazon agency, and so there's takeaways of connections that I want to make. And then the phone rings and, I got to head out early or whatever it is. And I don't get them all written down.
Yep.
And in this case,
doesn't matter.
It automatically kicks them out.
Yep. And better yet, you could take the transcript of that call you just had with that brand, and you would come up with a prompt where you say, analyze the transcript of this call and make sure that you find any time I've offered to introduce someone, or I've offered to, you come up with the common to-dos and spit those out in a nice list. And on top of the to-dos that I want you to spit me out a follow-up email that I can send to them summarizing our phone call. And GPT-4o will totally spit all of that out for you and send it out. So the idea of having a virtual assistant who sounds smarter than you do when they send emails on your behalf is now a thing. Because like my virtual assistant, she uses my ChatGPT 4 more than I do, because she goes in every day and I tell her, hey, here's a message that I want you to send. So here's the final hack of everything that's out there. And this is for like instant messaging chat. Do you use WhatsApp, Aaron?
Not a ton. No.
Okay. Have you ever received a WhatsApp voice message before? Like somebody presses the voice button?
Yes.
Have you ever been in the middle of a meeting and been like, I want to listen to what that says, but I don't have time for it right now. I can't listen to it. That ever happened to you?
No. Well, just a normal voicemail, but yeah.
Normal voicemail. So in WhatsApp, if you press and hold on that voice message and then you press forward, there's a phone number associated with an app called Fredo app. If you forward that voice message to Fredo, it will transcribe it and spit out the transcription to you to show you like, oh, that's what this person was saying. Super, super handy from the standpoint of just being able to like get the text version of what the person just sent to you. So, there's my in chat. So chats, clipboards, and virtual meetings. Those are the three categories that we went down and some of the hacks.
So much fun, my friend. I've been picking your brain. Like, any thoughts for me? I know we're getting here to the end of time. Like,
I guess my question for you, Aaron, is how do you go about making sure that what you're looking for in terms of opportunities and digital confirmation, how do you stay relevant? How do you make sure that you don't get sucked down the rabbit hole and find a tool that actually makes impact? How do you measure it?
I just talked to a ton of people. There's a couple things. Just as a scientist, it's experimentation and learning, like and allowing yourself to fail. It's reading the data and testing and learning to figure out when you have enough data points to say, hey, that one doesn't work, or almost. And then it's also not giving up on the new tech that's doing cool stuff that's out there. The starting point for me on everything is conversations like this. I try to talk to 20 to 30 brands a week and ask them, hey, what are you doing? How are you staying relevant? How are you staying on top of things? It's just interesting from the standpoint, like I was saying at the beginning, is a lot of those are like tools for, creating copy. Generative AI is out there. A lot of people are trying that. That's one of the big things is not shutting stuff down too early, really looking at the data, and talking to people. So
I love it. I agree. I think that general survey is a powerful way to connect those dots. And I do the same and talk to lots of digital marketers and other individuals in the space to try to find
the one thing I'm thinking about doing then is like basically plugging in a note taker on those and then anonymizing, but then pulling out the common threads on a weekly basis and then, consolidating them into, hey, here's the general topics that popped up this week, and just do a LinkedIn post on it. Right. Like,
holy crap. Yeah. What a killer LinkedIn post, Aaron. Like, this is the stuff that's coming up. The common thread of the 30 brands I connected to this last week is X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Yep.
Here are the challenges they're facing. Here are the tools they introduced. It's a killer post right there. Because the only way you get that post is by having 30 to 45 minutes with 30 different brands.
Right.
Like nobody can replicate that. Like, that's Aaron Conant juice right there.
Yeah. That's next. Because, in the past, and then we got to wrap this thing out. I think we could go forever. In the past, it is trying to scribble notes and then trying to consolidate and then trying to create it, as opposed to now just hitting,
Aaron,
give me a post.
Do you have a VA?
No. Mm-mm.
Aaron, you may want to. So the other thing I do in my spare time is I clone entrepreneurs, and I find them young entrepreneurs who are going to build them the systems to actually connect those different dots. We maybe want to consider that, because you need someone who can think like you and like figure out how to do like that. That's a perfect example. Make me a post every single week from the 30 different calls that I had. So they're going to go copy and paste all those transcripts into one giant document, then feed that giant document into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is going to say, oh, that's too big. And you're like, okay, all right, well, I got to feed each one individually and pull out the main points and then feed the main points into it. And so they got to figure out like how to go about making that. And they're going to try several different iterations. And eventually you're going to have some really solid, repeatable stuff that you can go in over and over and over again and have some really killer, like, I want to know what that thing says.
Right. One more thing to do. It's going to happen though. Well, it's got to happen. I think probably starting next week. Why not? Right? There's no reason for it not to.
There's no reason for it not to.
Yeah.
Especially considering like the time. I mean, it's all depends on the ROI, right? Like if you feel like that post is going to boost your followers and add to everything Aaron Conant wants to do, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm more from the standpoint, like I don't post, I don't think on LinkedIn enough. I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm not a social media person. Like I have one person who, one post impression or 8,000, like it doesn't get it, but it's more about brands, me having been on the brand side, desiring to get a real pulse on where people were at and what they were doing. If I can provide that back, because I know it's a need, I just get satisfaction in that. And I don't care if 5 people look at it and find it valuable, amazing.
Well, imagine, man, Aaron, this is a newsletter. So like Kevin Lee jumped on my podcast and he has 8,900 people on his $1 billion seller podcast or $1 billion seller email list. And if you don't actually click on something inside his email content, he removes you. You have to be engaged with his content in order for him to keep you on the list, which I think is actually super brilliant on his part because people recognize if I don't click on this, I'm going to get taken off. And so like he's creating a club. This is the I clicked on Kevin Lee's content club, and his content's got to be good enough that it's worth the 30 seconds that it took for me to click on that content and be like, oh, that was actually an interesting article, right? Aaron, what you're describing right now, the summarization of those 30 different conversations you're having with brands, that's a freaking newsletter. And honestly, like if you're interested, I'm feeling like this may be an opportunity to flex some automation skills, and I'll totally help you pick this apart.
We'll have to. Yes, let's do it. There's no reason not to, right? Why not?
Well, then every single one of those brands, you tell them, hey, this was great. I'm doing 30 of these conversations a week. Jump on my newsletter and you'll get a summary of what I'm seeing in the industry, a pulse each week. And the only way you stay on that pulse message is if you click at least once a month on one of the articles. And that's all I ask, is just stay engaged with the content and let me know when you want to do another one of these calls, and we'll keep up with what's going on out here, because that's the only way you stay alive.
All right. We do have to wrap up this episode.
And then the next time, dude, Aaron, the next time you do like an after hours event at X, Y, or Z, you've got a list of like 8,000 sellers who are all clicking on something of yours every single, like, this is a newsletter.
All right. You talked me into it, Will. But I think it is doable now, which it wasn't before. I just didn't have the time, right? 4 kids at home. I want to pour into them as much as possible.
You still don't have the time, but AI
does
give you the leg up to do it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, that's, we got to wrap this one up. Will, thanks so much for your time today. Incredibly insightful. Everybody be on the lookout for the newsletter. It's now a commitment that's been made, so we're going to have to do it. But with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks everybody for listening in.